This is going to be one of those special videos. My name is Troels, and in this video today we are taking a deep look at our new 8DO Shepard Tones. As you've probably heard lately, there's been a lot of talk about Shepard Tones. Hans used it a lot in Dunkirk and a variety of his older movies, and Christopher Nolan is fascinated with the concept of these everlasting rising type of sounds, or falling actually. You can actually, as you notice here, reverse these guys and they have the exact opposite effect. But it's really the notion of a sound that rises and rises but never really goes anywhere, and it creates a beautiful tension. And I'm going to give you a variety of demos today in terms of how you can use it. We have hundreds and hundreds of custom-made Shepard tones. Some are orchestral, some are synthetic, some are organic. We have a variety of different ones. Some are wet and some are dry and this and that. But let me just try to describe briefly what is actually going on, and then we'll go into the depth of the library. A Shepard tone in its most primitive form can be described with three different waveforms that are each split an octave apart. And imagine, for example, this is just a piano. The center note here will play an octave at normal volume. The upper one here, which is an octave above, will play the same motion here, but it'll gradually fade out. And the bottom octave here, 2 octaves below, will start by being faded out, and then the volume will gradually rise. And that creates an auditory illusion, if you will, of something constantly rising within itself. And actually, one of the cool things about this library is that we took Shepard tones a little bit further. It's not just that we did all these different textural types of Shepards involving a lot more than just 3 tones. And it's not just that you can use the reverse function and do them backwards, but we actually also did hybrid tool style risers that are rising within themselves. So whereas Shepard tone will only rise an octave, we actually made Shepard tones that are constantly rising across 6 octaves, but rising within itself. So you hear the Shepard sort of repeat its octave thing while still rising. And you do that both front and reverse. You can do some crazy things. But that's a lot of talk about Shepard tones. Why don't we try to get into it here? It's actually a tricky library to demonstrate because the Shepard tones are long if you use them in a more musical context. So just keep in mind that we have many hundreds of different Shepard tones in the library, but for the purpose of not making your neighbors or respective family members feel too weird about what you're doing, we'll try to keep it to a couple of different demos here. But let's start out here by listening to one of the Shepard tones here. This one is what we call organic tones. And if you notice down here, each of these keys here actually represent a different Shepard tones. There's a variety of different ones, 10 gigabytes of Shepard tones. There's a lot of stuff in the library, but let's just get into the organic one here, and then I'll show you some of the beautiful things you can also do with the library once we get a little deeper into it. But welcome to Shepard Tones. And obviously it just goes on and on and on. As you may have noticed, I actually used 2 different Shepard notes down here. I had one that was more high frequency of the organic tones here, and then I have one that was lower frequencies. And one of the great things about this library is that you have many Shepard tones at your disposal at any time. Some of them have different textures, some of them have different frequent levels, some are dry, some are wet, some are orchestral, some are synthetic, and a variety of different things. Let me try to play the same thing here, but actually add a little more stuff to it. I'm going to use a couple of grooves from our Neo library, our Hybrid Tools Neo, just to add a little more sort of musicality to it. It's going to be a little bit redundant just listening to ood all the time. So let me try to play the same thing again here, but add a few more elements to it. You're going to hear some rhythmic elements, and they're all coming from Neo. Everything I'm demonstrating in this video is only made with Shepard tones and our new Hybrid Tools Neo as well. So keep that in mind. But let me just try to play the same thing here, but add a few more things to it. And everything you just heard was created in like a minute. All that was happening is that we had 2 Shepard tones here. we had another patch here with our rising Shepard tones, meaning that they constantly rise, but I clicked the reverse button. So you actually had these guys going up within themselves, and then you had this thing going down, and then you just have a couple loop beats from our Neo library here, and that was it. Let me try to demonstrate another one here. Obviously, as you can see, every key here is a different Shepard, so there's a lot to demonstrate here. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of sort of flavor demonstration from each of the different categories here. And if you look down here in the keys, you see that I actually added more Shepards as we went into the track. And it's a great way to build more tension. You don't just have to use one, but you can actually use multiple Shepards together all the time. If you listen here, the textures are vastly different for all these guys here. And that's why it's so hard to demonstrate all of them, because there's so freaking many of them. Speaking of that, actually, let me try to play you yet another one here. So we just listened to our synthetic Shepard tones here, but let me try to play one of our slow ones here. We decided to record them at different speeds because you might have a track that requires a different types of rising tension based on your tempo. So we both have slow ones, medium tones, and fast tones. And if you ever need to go further, you can actually just click the stretch button down here and isolate whatever one you liked, and you can play it across many, many octaves here and make it perfectly timed to your composition as well. But the idea here is really to both have slow rising ones, medium rising ones, and fast rising ones as well. And when I say rise, I have to be a little bit careful actually, because we have a reverse button here that does exactly the opposite. And I'll also demonstrate that. Let me just play something here first with one of the slow Shepards, and then I'm going to reverse it as well so you can hear what it sounds like when we go backwards. Let me take the exact same Shepard that we just played, but this time I'm going to click the reverse button, and then the magical things happens that the Shepard reverses itself, so it doesn't rise, it actually drops in eternity. You know, it is interesting. You just add this singular one here, you add a beat behind it, and you really got something unique. There's an emotional intention, and it's no wonder that Zimmer and others are using these things, because there is something that's inherently maybe not really musical, but more sound designy, but it really embeds so well with music. It sits so well in the mixture as this unique sort of outside texture, creating another sort of emotional vibe around the sound. Let me also show you some of the medium speed Shepard tones here. I'll just play a couple of different ones so you get a feeling for the different textures, and then I'm just going to sustain one of them as well. So you can hear there was many different textures, and we ended with one of the higher pitched ones. Let me try to do something cool here as well. I'm going to click the reverse button here, and then I'm going to click the gate button, because you can also gate the Shepard's tone. So right now we're going to play the same thing we just heard, but we're going to reverse it so it goes down, and then I'm going to apply our tempo synced or BPM synced gate to it as well. And obviously you also have chaos effects here in the background. So imagine how much stuff you can do in terms of manipulating them. You can also stack them if you want. If you want to just add like a bunch of different things together, you can do that. But with the Shepard's tones, I recommend that you don't stack too much. They take a large chunk of the frequency spectrum of your composition, so be careful not overusing them. But they can be really cool just in a more singular fashion. So let's check out the reversed gated version here. And of course, we also have the fast Shepard's tones here. These are rising faster, and they can actually be fun to layer a little more. Just make sure when you do the layering of the Shepards that you keep them separated in terms of frequencies. You don't want to have too many overlayers in the same frequency spectrum, but you can surely do like a bass, mid, and top one. But check this one out. You're going to see me stash a couple more keys here. We also have a variety of presets in the library, and one of the cool things that we added to Shepard Tones here is that we actually added more reverbs to our convolution reverb down here, and particular big verbs. So if you look down here in spaces, you're going to see a variety of new categories here. These are all new impulse files designed to really augment the spectrum of what you can do with sounds, and they're really big verbs, all of them, so really large convolution impulses that sort of gives this enormous supernova tone to your sound. Let me just play a couple of examples here with the organic tones, and then show how you can virtually do, like, imagine like a trailer for like an Aliens movie or something like that. And then I want to show you how you can actually use the Shepard's tones to create music by themselves. This is more in the sort of sound designy trailer inspired world, but just with this one patch here, I'm pretty much done in regards to what I want to do here. Try to check it out. It's simple, but very, very effective. Isn't it cool? So in essence, I just demoed a couple of different Shepards, and then I took one and sustained it while I played another one in a more sort of rhythmic fashion, the more sort of screechy one. And that's it. And imagine you just use a couple of other hyper tools or cinematic tools around it. You're pretty much set, because the Shepard creates that sort of unique tension by itself. Let me give you another example of a preset here. We call this one Spinning Rise. And one of the beautiful things about Shepard's tone here is that you have hundreds and hundreds of different Shepard's tones. You have all the beautiful tools here, but you also got our chaos effects. And in this case here, you can see the filter is going crazy right now. I modulated the filter to run in a particular sequence here, and it creates this sort of spinning fashion around the Shepard. So I think one of the beautiful things about the Shepard's tones is not just that we have so many of them here. We virtually covered every possible angle you could do to it. But it's also, we give you all the tools here to have fun and try to mangle them in new ways and use the gator or all the crazy effects here, and add any kind of effect you want with it. The notion being just having fun with the library, apply whatever effects you want. It can be the ones we offer here, but it can also be your personal favorite plugin effects. They all apply fine, and you can't really do any damage to the Shepard tone. It just works no matter what you freaking do to it. So let's listen here to the spinning rise. And again, all that was just one preset here, and then one of our loop banks from Hypertools Neo playing a couple loops. That's it. Let me show you one final preset here. We also have this awesome stack function, so you can actually stack Shepard tones together. Knowing these are 5 banks and they all span over multiple octaves here, you can actually do over 100 if you wanted to. So right now we're going to be listening to 15 Shepard tones playing at the same time. No wonder this preset is called This Is Tension. And of course, with all the Shepards here, we got filter modulation as well. So on your mod wheel, you can control the filter. It's just great. In this case, I was moving it up gradually to make that build up. And imagine this also for a riser in, for example, EDM music. They're just perfect for sort of those noise type of risers, but these guys have a little more texture and uniqueness to them. And of course, you can always just, click reverse, gate it, and do the whole thing again. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, we also have a different type of Shepard tones that we call Shepard risers. Let me show you them as well. And these are completely different Shepards as well. In this case, we also did them both slow, medium, and fast. So depending on what you need for your composition, you have all different tempos. And again, you can always click the stretch function here, isolate whatever Shepard you want, and then play it across your entire keyboard. So you can get the feel that really works for your composition. So you can hear they come in many, many different textures and colors, and just to give you a little bit of an idea about it. But I should also mention that the library comes, and I've actually not demonstrated that in this video, we also have complete separate banks with very dry Shepards Some of these you have heard here are more manipulated and there's reverb in some of them, but we also have completely dry ones in a variety of an assortment of categories. That's why I'm saying there are many hundreds and hundreds of different Shepards and different takes on what they can be in this library. But let's wrap up this rising fest here by playing one final Shepard here. Again, we're going to be listening to the risers. I'm going to take one of the medium risers here and playing in its more full length so you can really hear how they work when they sort of rise within themselves, if you will, meaning that you have the normal Shepard tone and then you have that being pitched up over multiple octaves over a span of time. Super cool effect. And of course, you can also reverse that. But I hope this little journey into Shepard Tones has sparked an interest for this very unique tool. It sort of goes together with our hybrid tools. It's in that domain of sound, but incredibly effective on its own, and it just creates that really unique tension in your music. I wouldn't always say that it is necessarily dark. I think it can lend itself to EDM and many other styles of music, but it certainly creates a texture or an aura around your composition, if you will, augmenting it with new types of emotions and textures and infusion of elements that you wouldn't commonly hear in music. So it's just an awesome tool, and it's definitely going to be integral in my hybrid templates because it just works. As you can see, I'm really not doing that much. I'm just playing a couple of hybrid things here and it all sort of just works together. So anyway, my name is Troels. I'm signing out for 8DO here with our Shepard Tones, and we're going to wrap it up here with the medium risers. See you soon.